Hello and welcome to FutureFi, where we talk about anything and everything on the blockchain. Today we have Daniel Keller on the show, who is the co-founder of Flux. And on today's episode, we talk about Flux nodes, proof of useful work, and the importance of decentralization, and so much more. So without wasting any more time, let's jump right into it. What's up, Damien? How you doing?
I'm doing great. Can't complain. Another day in paradise. How about you guys?
Good. And Daniel, how you doing, man? Great to have you on.
Doing well, man. I'm grateful you guys gave me the opportunity to jump on here and tell you a little bit about Flux and all that kind of good stuff. So thanks for having me on.
All right, let's just jump right into it. Hey, Daniel, if you could just tell us a bit about yourself and leading into how you came about creating Flux and working on this project.
Well, that's a loaded question because people that ask me to tell them a little bit about myself, there's a lot to tell. But basically come from a background in technology. So a chief information officer for 20 plus years. Got into crypto very early on. Started out by mining, had a large mining facility. It was more of it's like, you guys know how it is. It starts out as a hobby, then becomes an addiction. So it became a bit of an addiction for me as well. So I mean, man, there's nothing like firing up a rig and getting those cards hashed for the very first time. It's a great feeling. So as fate would have it, in my quest to find the next great shitcoin to mine, I stumbled across an upstart project, and it just so happened that me and Tadeusz and Parker were all in the same Discord. We had the opportunity to sit and chat, and we kind of hit it off. And that's how it was originally Zelcash early on, but it was then forked and became Flux. We rebranded the whole nine yards. And the rest is history. We've spent the past 4 years working on our decentralized computational network. We have Zelcore, which is our multi-asset platform, and there's a whole host of things that are on the ecosystem right now up and running. So my life basically revolves around my family and my dog and my project, which is Flux. So those are my big things.
No, that's perfect, man. I relate very similarly to going from mining to very deep down the rabbit hole where I am now. So our entry was very similar. So I can definitely align with you on that. But jumping into Flux, we would love for you to give us like the elevator pitch or the explanation and simple definitions for our listeners. Someone that's never heard of Flux, what is it trying to accomplish, and what is it?
Well, I've had quite the experience of being able to hone this pitch because with Flux being as popular as it has been, I get a lot of people that come to me and they ask me, what is it and why does it matter? And Flux really at its core is a decentralized compute network. You hear the buzzword thrown around Web3. We were Web3 before Web3 was cool. Our nodes came online 3 years ago. What we did is we really came into the space to fix two issues. One was the decentralized compute, because we felt that the big box players, AWS, Google, Microsoft, so on and so forth, weren't playing necessarily fair with people's data, and we knew that there had to be a better way. And we actually took parts of what master nodes were back in the day. And if you guys have been in this space long enough, there was a master node craze where everybody had to do these ridiculous rewards on these master nodes, and they'd stand up these things that basically were just transaction validators. And like everything else, we looked at the project and we said, the idea, the concept behind the node network is interesting, but not the way that it's practiced today. So we have to figure out a way to make it work. And that's where we actually started to deploy our deterministic nodes. So if you don't know anything, so that's a long explanation. The short explanation is Flux is AWS for blockchain. Essentially, we provide computational resources to people looking to source, whether they're standing up a dApp, an Oracle, websites, you name it. You can run it on Flux today. And what makes us different than every other platform out there, because people say that, they'll say, well, why are you different from AWS? AWS is the third-party provider. So if I have a project that I want to deploy, I have to go to AWS and they deploy it in their centralized co-load locations. With Flux, we put that back into the hands of the people who deploy enterprise-based infrastructure, and they provide the compute resource. And in return for providing that compute resource, they get rewarded with Flux. So that means the people that are developing on the platform are doing it for almost free. I think we deployed a node the other day. It was I want to say it was a pre-search node, and we paid point for Flux to deploy it. So, and then people say, well, how can you give that away? How can you give that compute resource away? Because the model that it currently existed, the way that AWS and Azure and a lot of these platforms have put into practice, they are the kind of the gatekeepers, the toll booths for this compute network. And there's a lot of enterprise infrastructure that's just laying around. And our goal was to take that enterprise infrastructure and deploy it, and then actually create a marketplace where people could actually go and source that, deploy their different dApps and so on and so forth. And that's kind of how Flux was born. And I would say if I had to explain it to somebody in a real quick, I had to explain it to my mom, and I told my mom, I was like, all right, do you know Amazon? Yes. Do you know Amazon Web Services? Yes. Okay, we do that, but we're not Amazon. The people are are Amazon. It's like Bitcoin. It's blockchain. And she said, "Well, I understand that." So, and that really, in a nutshell, is kind of what Web3, at least the infrastructure side of Web3, looks like.
Yeah, and what an important problem to solve, and to see it that early and be able to lay out such an efficient ecosystem where people can build and deploy their dApps on a decentralized server. And once that becomes more known and the benefits of that, like, it's really just going to become the norm. And what you guys are building, because I personally help contribute to the network, so I've seen behind the curtain a bit, and it's so amazing as someone deploying a node. It's super simple and super. I learned a lot, so that's been super enjoyable on my end. But who else is on the team with you, and who else is building this on your side?
Well, we actually have a pretty big team now. I think last count, Flux was about 55 developers, and of course, mixed in that was marketing, PR, and all that kind of good stuff. The co-founders, myself, Tadej Comenta, and Parker Honeyman, we're really the ones that are the core, and we kind of keep the top level stuff going. But we have Jeremy Anderson, who was one of the original developers on Ravencoin. We have, we just Volter, who if you've set up a Flux node, you know who Volter is. The guy is like all over the damn place. He supports everyone. I think if we have 6,200 nodes online, he's probably set up 6,100 of them.
Right on.
So, and we kid about it, but that's what it is. And then we just have a whole host of devs, and each one of them really is kind of specific for a particular area of the ecosystem. Most projects are attacking one level of a problem, or maybe they have a proof of concept or a minimal viable project that they're working on. Flux is really a developed ecosystem. So we have a team that works on Flux. We have a team that works on Flux OS. We have a team that works on Titan, which will be our new shared node services. We have a team that works with Jetpack, we're getting ready to launch Jetpack, which is our developer onboarding toolkit. We have a team that works on CoinRequest. We have a team that works on Zelcore. We have a team that, you name it. And there are some, there is some lap over in those areas. So one developer may work on Zelcore a little bit and then work on Flux. But essentially the team that we have on the Flux side is the team that we have on the Flux side.
Yeah, so you just touched on so many points that I'm super excited to dive into later in this conversation. But one other question I had is, you guys have been live for quite some time. What are some applications that are currently running on Flux?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. I think the way I'll start out is giving you some little statistics about Flux, and then we'll kind of segue into a little bit deeper. But right now, today, there's over 6,500 unique deployments on the platform. So that's Cadena, that's Presearch, that's Dash, Pivx, you name it, a whole bunch of different platforms. And of course, there's a bunch of dApps in there as well. So we have, if you guys are gamers, if you've heard of TeamSpeak, we actually run TeamSpeak on Flux now, which is kind of cool.
Oh, wow. Old
Yeah,
school.
yeah, old school stuff, but they're coming out with and I don't want to. I don't want to give you too much behind the curtains for them because that's their thing. But they are coming up with a Discord competitor essentially. So, and we're super excited about that because we're going to deploy that on Flux the day that that's released as well. So right now we have about 6,300 nodes online. And we still have about 2/3 of our halvening yet to go. So we're estimating that'll be about 10,000. We can currently host about 1.2 million deployments. So we've got plenty of room to grow, especially with the halvening the way that it sits right now. Our network usage has increased about 8,000% over the past 90 days. We now have 6 full-time employees essentially working for business development on the Flux side. So actually working with new customers that are coming on board, and working through the details of Jetpack so that we can help them start to deploy in a quicker clip. The Flux network averages around 45,000 plus transactions a day, which is huge. Those are actually, you talk about a chain being used, we actually use our chain hard. And we have about 62 instances, 6,200 instances live, and there is over 5,000 plus requests per minute on the Flux network on the Flux OS side. So the answer to that question is there's a lot of projects that are specially deploying and they want to be decentralized. We had Haven that just launched their front end infrastructure and they're starting to work on their back end infrastructure. We have several NFT projects that are working with Flux Labs, which is our incubation acceleration model. So yeah, it's a little bit of everything. Whether you're a developer that just wants to launch a decentralized website, or if you're an autonomous organization that wants to be truly autonomous by running on a decentralized network, that's exactly what we're here for.
So what, if at all, what is the user experience like for the user, if it's any different at all? Is there any more latency? Do they have to connect with their wallet? Do they have to use a special browser? Anything at all on their side, on the user side?
So everything's tied back to Zelcore. So if you're deploying on Flux OS, you're going to use your Zel ID to sign your transaction on the network. But the way we have laid it out is to make it as easy as humanly possible for people to deploy. Most of the folks that come in and they're it's kind of like setting up a node or setting up a mining rig for the first time. You have to work through the process, and then once you figure out the process, then you realize how damn easy it really was. So Project Jetpack will definitely speed that up. We want the look and the feel to feel like you're doing an onboarding of a standard, VPS provider, and we want to make it super easy for people to deploy on the network. So, we have a lot of tools built to make this easy because these aren't one-click deployment nodes. These are actually real, enterprise-based infrastructure that's hosted in people's houses, on VPSs, on Raspberry Pis and Jetsons, you name it. We're not, you're not deploying some NFT and then burning your asset and pretending that you have a node with an API. You actually have real infrastructure in place. And that's why we can scale as quickly as we did. We went from, about 2,400 nodes to over 6,300 in the course of about a week and a half, almost 2 weeks. So, there's a lot of real positive stuff there. And we really want input from the community as we continue to kind of keep growing, of how we can hone this and make this easier. But the way I tell everyone is, Flux nodes are not easy, and they're meant to not be easy. It's not for everyone. These aren't one-click deployment nodes. These are no BS. You become a decentralized systems administrator when you run these nodes. That means you have to understand the project. You have to understand what you're doing. You have to make sure you have uptime. You're meeting our 99.9% uptime that we have. Or in our benchmark, I think it's 99.5, but close enough. And then once you deploy it on the network, so say Dan wants to deploy a website on the network, I go in, I allocate 5 servers. Those 5 servers are randomly spawned all over the world. So you could have one turned on here in the States, you could have one turned on in Europe. one turned on, and we have nodes and on every continent now, which is pretty impressive. Antarctica was the one that I think that we didn't have, and somebody stood something up for a short period of time up there that we could just say that we were there.
Nice.
There's not a hell of a lot of data centers in Antarctica or really anybody. So if somebody's out there listening, you're in Antarctica and you would like to run a node, let me know and I will send you a node. All you have to do is turn it on.
Let's go. And it'll probably run pretty cold. Don't have to worry about overheating.
Hell yes. That'd be the place you want to mine right there, man.
There you go.
So,
Very cool.
so yeah, we take a lot of pride in our network. You know, I often say this, and I don't say this just because it's my project. I say it because it's realistic. We have the smartest community in crypto because most people who come in and they want to run a node, they realize real quickly that they can't or they can't handle it. And the individuals that are running the infrastructure, they want to handle it. They want to learn. They want to teach themselves. They want to know about the project. They want to know about what we're doing, what we're releasing, how it's growing. So, you know, not to toot our own horn, but we have one of the best communities out there, hands down, without a doubt.
Yeah, I can actually speak to that because when I was setting up my node, the Discord was very, very helpful. And once I got it done, I felt there was no problem. It was super easy for me to help other people just because of the energy in the channel. It was very helpful. People were jumping in voice. That was actually a pretty cool experience on my end setting up the node.
Well, you know, that's really what blockchain was all about for a very long time. And of course, as you know, more adoption came on board and more attention came on board, more people started to FOMO into it, and they were more about the price action than they were the technology. And that's where Flux has kind of succeeded is we still have that baser instinct. We still have that, you know, we're all cypherpunks at heart. We like to help each other. You know, I would say you'd be hard pressed not to get, if you go into our Discord today and you ask a question, you're going to get an answer, and you might even get it from me. You know, we're very involved with our community because we believe in what we're doing. And you know that's really what it comes down to is having the ethos, the fundamental underpinnings of who we are as a community is what really has helped us succeed. And you know, for all intents and purposes, our plan is to take the place of Ethereum when Ethereum moves to proof of stake. And I believe we will do that 110% because we have put together the ecosystem that matters. And people will get the shits of buying grape apes or whatever the soup du jour is and getting wrecked, you know, meme coins and so on and so forth. And but they're not going to give up. And when they're going to find Flux, naturally gravitate toward it. And when they do, we get a community member for life because very rarely will you see somebody come in and leave the community. They usually come in and they stay for a very long time. I mean, I know the guys, I literally know the guys that were in that Discord from day one, which is pretty impressive.
Very cool. So there's a lot there. So let's unpack that. So you mentioned that Flux is not for like the faint of heart. So who is the ideal operator? What kind of equipment do they have? What's their experience? Like, what does one need to know to be familiar with jumping into Flux and being an operator?
Well, we kind of built this so that that people that are comfortable in crypto, and when I say comfortable in crypto, they know what a wallet is, they know how to set a wallet up, they maybe have, you know, played around with mining or something like that. They can naturally gravitate toward node setups. But we also acknowledged that we needed to get this into the hands. So our enterprise infrastructure, which is our on-chain infrastructure, that's one part of the project. But we're getting ready to roll out our Cirrus nodes, which are off-chain. It'll only take 5 Flux to start a node. You can run Raspberry Pi and a Jetson, and we're specifically going to be working on edge compute, and we're also going to be working on AI. I don't know if you guys know it, but we were accepted to the NVIDIA Inception program. So we have a big concentration of resources we want to put around Jetson deployment. And part of that is we're going to just get these nodes into the hands of people that want to learn technology. So when I went to school, my very first computer, my TSR-80 or whatever it was, it was an enigma to me, right? That's how I learned. That's how I cut my teeth. Was I actually started to learn programming on, TSR-80 or Trash 80 is what they called it back in the day. We want to get these nodes in the hands of everyone. So we'll be, I personally am going to donate 100 nodes to different schools all around the world. We're going to really press hard on our foundational development to be able to allow people to really get access to this infrastructure. And we want them. I call it the world's biggest test net. We want people to learn how to code. We want people to learn how to run these nodes, and we're going to put our money where our mouth is, and our time and our talents as well to make that happen. So, the answer to your question is we wanted everybody to be able to participate. There are particular facets of the project that will be harder than others, but if you have the acumen and if you have the patience and you're willing to learn, you can run a node.
Gotcha. Okay. So as of right now, a little more technical expertise required, but in the end, there will be a spectrum for anybody to really get a node up and running for themselves. Very cool.
Yeah. Yep. That's kind of the goal.
Gotcha. And then you mentioned Zelcore. So I'm pretty keen, and I want the audience to understand what is Zelcore and how it fits into the ecosystem. Do I need Zelcore in order to interface with any apps deployed on Flux, or how does all that fit together?
Yeah, you're gonna definitely need Zelcore because that's kind of the brain that makes it go. That's how you'll sign your transaction, and it's also how you'll deploy your capital. So you'll have to pay in Flux to be able to deploy this infrastructure. So, Zelcore was born out of necessity. So that was one of the second problems that we wanted to fix, was the fact that there was no real solid multi-asset platform out there that really addressed several different issues. So we wanted to make sure that we took care of our miners. So there were different projects that were new and emerging projects. We wanted to make sure that we got them in there quickly. We wanted it to be very, very deep and rich with its platform. So we started to add APIs from all the major exchanges. There's a portfolio tracker, there's dApps, you name it. It's a very well developed platform, and we're really super excited about what the future holds for it. And as a matter of fact, in less than a week, there's going to be a major announcement that comes out for Zelcore and some things that they're doing, which will just absolutely blow your mind. So once that's out, then we'll have to come back again and we'll have to revisit this and talk about it. But yeah, I mean, it's really the input that we got for Zelcore was really the mining community, the folks that participated in the network and gave us input. And we may not be the fanciest in terms of UI, UX. I'm sure there's other platforms out there that are prettier than us, but there's no platform out there that's more robust. None. And we pride ourselves in that. And we did recently. We hired two individuals that used to work for Accenture as their UI UX, and that is actually being worked on right now. That we're getting ready to redo all of that. So I think you're going to see some major changes coming down the pike in the next 3 months on Zelcore.
Got it. And Zelcore is a wallet. So is it similar to, I mean, everyone's familiar with MetaMask, the extension. So is this an extension? Is it an app that runs on my computer? Is there a mobile app? How does all that work?
This is Zelcore's on every major platform. So we're on Android, iOS, desktop, Apple, Linux, Ubuntu. You name it. It's you can use it on every single platform. The nice thing about it is you can install it on your computer and you can install it on your phone and you can still have access to the same wallet. There's no clunky, weird setup to try to get your crypto assets. So it feels a lot like, you know, a Robinhood or something like that, where all of your assets are in kind of one location. So, the ultimate goal is really for Zelcore to be the front end of Web3. So we call it a browser of Web3 or whatever you want to call it. But we can really start to plug in all the pieces that are developed on Flux on the infrastructure of Web3, and we can use Zelcore as the front end of Web3. So think of it as an early web browser.
Got it. Okay. So it's kind of like my portal into Web3 as well as my mission control for all of my assets. Is that kind of a good way to look at it?
Bingo. You want a job for working on the marketing team? Because that's great.
I always have to think of analogies to really get things consecrated in my own head. So
Yeah,
no,
I'm
that
gonna
sounds
st-
super
we'll
cool.
steal it. We're gonna steal that one. We'll stick it in our arsenal here.
No worries. Yeah, please do. Okay, very cool. So, also, something I want to dive into and really emphasize for any listeners is so because in crypto, right, you have, I think there's been a huge wave of new people who come from very different backgrounds from who have conventionally been in crypto, more non-technical. And
Hmm.
so there's kind of this debate like, is decentralization important? Some people don't even have it in mind, when it comes to like censorship resistance and all this other stuff. And so they
Hmm.
just want high throughput, high transaction speed, right? Those are the people who are new and they like nothing but things like Solana and some of these more centralized chains because they just want cheap, fast transactions. But I,
Hmm.
I personally think that the importance of a decentralized architecture is like paramount for like censorship resistance and permissionless accessibility. And so Flux has all of that, right? Anybody can create on Flux and access Flux, and can anything be taken down by the network? Can things be voted to be taken down? How censorship resistant is it? And all that.
It's a hell of a question and a long one. So let's break it down in segments. So the first part you talked about is the importance of decentralization. An analogy that I like to use is, my wife, when she goes to the ATM, she puts the card in, she puts the number in, the money comes out, she takes the money, takes the receipt, and heads down the road. Her cash is complete. She could give two shits about how it all transpired in the background, right? She just knows it's a service that's easy and that they can and that she can use and she can use it effectively.
Right.
Um, I often say that people don't understand decentralization till they have to understand
Right.
decentralization, and I think what we're seeing today in the world is the perfect examples of why decentralization is so
Yes.
important. You're seeing what's happening in the Ukraine. You're seeing what's happening in Russia. You've seen major, a sitting U.S. president was completely deplatformed from Twitter. I mean,
Hmm.
that's to me, whether you like Donald Trump or you don't like Donald Trump, it's irrelevant because it could easily be, Joe Biden, or it could easily be the next president. So when you allow third parties to be gatekeepers and basically say what you can and cannot say, um, what you can and cannot do on their platform, they're going to get you. And that's really why Flux was born, is for the people by the people. Um, there is, of course, like any other platform out there, there is absolutely content that just can't be on the platform. I mean, you guys know. I mean, there's just things out there that you just can't have out there.
Yeah,
But the
I'm
nice thing
familiar with
about
the dark web, so that's what I wanted to kind
well,
of get into as
not
well.
even not even not even the dark web. Bring the dark web into the light. I mean, in reality, is the dark web private? It's really not. I mean, I know for a fact. We all know for a fact that it's not necessarily a private,
Mhm.
world. But I envision a world where we'll be able to not worry about somebody. If you don't like what you're hearing or you don't like what you're seeing, then you go somewhere else. You know, and I feel like right now that I think it was Rumble that was taken down. Parlor was taken down. What Parlor was
Mhm.
taken down by
Yes.
Amazon. So Amazon arbitrarily takes down I mean, basically killed the platform, because I don't know that it's ever recovered after that. We talked to them a couple times about possibility of maybe deploying on Flux, and they just didn't seem to get how it all worked. But I mean, that's a concern to me, and you look at what happened in Canada with the truckers, where they just
Yep.
you didn't even have to be in the protest. You financially supported somebody of political that you believed and aligned with politically, and they basically deplatformed you, froze your bank account, took everything, and they were even so ignorant as to try to take their crypto, and the crypto exchanges were like, "Yeah, good luck with that. You guys might want to check into what's called self custody." So, you know, I think when Satoshi Nakamoto thought about Bitcoin, and you go back and read some of his
Mhm.
emails and his web posts, he understood that Bitcoin would take on a life of its own, and if it could flourish, which it has, um, it would disrupt pretty much damn near everything there is. And I think that this is the next logical iteration of what Satoshi started out doing. And I'm not saying it's Flux, but I'm saying it's Flux. Um, we addressed a major problem that Satoshi had, and that was, what do you do with all this computational resources hanging out there? You have these massive networks that are just basically validating transactions, and we kind of addressed that as we started to work with proof of useful work. So we've already kind of deployed that on our node side, where our nodes are actually doing valid work. Whether you're folding at home or you're running a dApp or you're just participating in the ecosystem. It's useful work. And we're going to eventually span that off into the GPU side of the world as well. So, that was a long question. I think I got all your points, but I'm not sure. I'm not positive. Did I miss anything?
No, I think you got everything. And that's exactly what I want to bring up too. That's what I had in mind with regard to the censoring of Donald Trump. Essentially, like you said, whether you like him or not, there should not be any centralized entity who can dictate who can post things on the internet, and
Yep.
whatever they may decide to post, because I think that everything in the world has a right to be accessible by anyone, and should be, communities should be able to be born from that. That's kind of the beauty of kind of this hive mind that we have, that we call the internet. So two questions arose from what you mentioned. One of them being, when do you think society at large will have like the aha moment? Because I do agree with regard to what's happening in Canada and in the Ukraine. And obviously, a lot of money has been sent to Ukraine through crypto because they didn't have access to their money and things like that. How long do you think it is until society catches up to everything that we've been pushing for years now?
I literally think we're experiencing our aha moment right now, today, right now. If you look around and you see what's happening around the world, I think you're really going to see exactly how people. You don't understand technology till you have to understand technology. And the folks in the Ukraine right now, who this is a lifeline for them to live. When you have a major country coming out and asking for donations in crypto to be able for them to basically defend their country from an invasion. Crypto's it's out there. It doesn't get bigger than this. You see, country after country coming out, and they're adopting, Bitcoin as some level of standard, whether it's, a currency model or whatever it is. I think you're seeing it right now, and I think people are genuinely tired of it. I think in the States we're tired of quantitative easing. We're tired of devaluing our dollar. We're tired of government controlling which can and which can't say, and working to get directly with large tech companies who will act as their henchmen. And I think that's really what now, by the way, these are the opinions of Dan Keller, the cypherpunk. This doesn't necessarily reflect the views of the project. I always like to throw that. But yeah, I want to say it's 70% of all dollars in circulation were printed within the last 2 years. They say, inflation is transitory. It's not, it's here. It's, best guess is they're stating it's between 6 and 7%. I think it's more in the 15%. And if you've tried to buy a car, if you've tried to buy a piece of meat at the grocery store, you're going to know damn well it's greater than 7%. It's going to be more than 30%. I mean, things that we used to pay $10 are now all of a sudden 18. So yeah, you can do the math on that. So yeah, I think that this is the epiphany moment. I think this is the aha moment, and I think you're going to see us demonized. When I say us, crypto at large, blockchain at large, because the controls are gradually slipping away. Never in the history of mankind has there been another process other than fiat currencies. Fiat currencies were always destined to fail, no matter how you slice it up, whether it's the Roman Empire or whatever it is. Fiat currencies were destined to fail. Why? Because we get greedy. I mean, do you know why there's ridges on your dime and your quarter?
I think I read that fact a while back, but I don't remember now. What is it?
because people would shave down the coins when they were actually made of silver and or gold or anything like that. So they started putting ridges on the coins to prevent people from actually grinding them down and then, basically devaluing the money. you know, it there's history lessons to be learned. And, actually when, the United States was formed and they sat down and they started talking about it, um, counterfeiting and or really messing with the dollar was punishable by death. Like there was no, and our founding fathers they didn't joke around with it. Like that was treason. But yet now we have a Federal Reserve that just does just that. They manipulate our financial infrastructure. So um, I think this is an opportunity for blockchain to really shine. And if we do it correctly and we do it right, and we don't pound our chest and say we told you so. We present solutions to problems, much like what Flux is doing with one of the other things we worked on was the interchain operability piece, which we can get to then. But if you fix problems, then then you start to become the solution and not the problem. So, and that's exactly what I think is happening in blockchain and crypto overall. You're seeing it happen now.
I agree completely. I've heard some people express that what's been going on could actually be bad, one, like for the market. But for me, seeing these issues arrive and knowing just how crypto actually solves all of them has made me like incredibly more bullish, actually, since the onset of the pandemic. And knowing that they're going to start printing money, I just knew, okay, give it 5 years, 3 years, and we're going to be in a completely different place that we probably didn't even imagine would come so
Yeah.
quickly. Because
Yeah.
there's three reasons, right? The technical reasons why decentralization is important, being with the deployment of applications such as Parler. We're seeing the financial reason with inflation, and then just the standard technological reason, meaning like being able to receive money cross borders without any permission and things like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I mean, it's pretty cool to really see the ambitions and vision of crypto finally manifesting. So how are you guys driving growth to really position yourselves to be the solution that everybody begins to use?
Well, a lot of people I ask, they say, who's your competition? And it's very difficult for us to sit there and
Mhm.
isolate any one particular platform that would be a competition because we have yet to see anyone doing it like us. And we've built this from the ground up for a reason. We wanted to make sure that we were actually functional and provided those solutions that we talked about earlier. And in that, we created opportunities, and those opportunities for people to come on and start to develop different parts of the platform, different parts of what they're doing. So, I mean, in the end, um, you know, the ultimate goal is to see these things continue to keep growing and to continue to keep iterating. And I think you're going to see our platform especially shine because of the thoughtfulness that's been put into the development of it. We didn't go in all FOMO-y and we didn't sell, there was no ICO, there was no VC. We strictly ruled all of that
Mm.
stuff off. We're homegrown. We developed this project from the ground up, and that's why I believe we'll be successful in the end.
Yeah, I think that that's important to emphasize too, especially with a lot of these new quote unquote VC chains that are just being shielded all over the place. I think that's
Yep.
really important to highlight there. So pretty cool to mention. What were you going to say, Bunzi? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, just for being a part of the ecosystem, everything kind of checks off. There's no, it's sustainable. There's not APYs that are through the roof. There's not crazy numbers. It's a sustainable system that provides a true network that's truly decentralized and incentivizes people like myself to even get a node up. I have a node running in Helsinki through a VPS. And like you were mentioning earlier, it's a great learning, and knowing that you're contributing to decentralization is a good feeling as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a lot of people deploying home infrastructure as well, so we put a lot of emphasis on really remaining decentralized. But I do think there is a problem in the space today, and that is the fact that um, you know regulation is coming, especially in the states. I would say the majority of the platforms that are running today on Coinbase, as soon as regulation comes down the pike, they will all be found as securities. I would say every single one of our quote unquote competition are unregistered securities. And as a matter of fact, I would go as far and as bold to say that I would say the majority of the projects you're seeing that are being touted as Web3 infrastructure are pure out Ponzi schemes. And, that's a little terrifying because, um, you have new users coming into the space, and you asked earlier about the new users scenario. I really try to educate any new user that comes in to do their own research. Sometimes it's the most expensive education you'll ever get because you'll think you find something that's amazing. You're getting these amazing rate of return. For the first month, it's gangbusters. The second month, it's gangbusters. You're like, oh my God, I'm going to be rich. It's just number go up, and the next thing you know, you're holding a bag of nothing. And we're seeing it all too often. And we're not only that, but we're seeing it on a very large scale where these projects are being created and they're being pushed to every single one of these centralized exchanges. I mean, look at the ape coin that just Floki was before that, and whatever the other meme dog coin is, Shiba Inu or whatever it was. People, there's no technology around these projects. These are 100% speculatory projects, and they're 100% been created to take your crypto. They're using these inflated massive numbers that they're printing, and they're taking your Bitcoin, they're taking your Flux, they're taking whatever it is that you sell to buy these shit coins. And really, in the end, they're taking advantage of the retail investor overall. And I think that's where Flux has kind of rejected all of that. We just don't see it like that. We want to be sustainable, and we want to have growth, and we want to be the next iteration of blockchain. And to do that, you have to have individuals in the space that trust you. So we're super transparent with our there'll only ever be 440 million Flux that are ever minted. So we didn't come out with some mysterious, market cap. You look at ETH and it's got ICO, and then it's got an unlimited cap, and now they're moving to proof of stake. And you look at the folks that invest in Ethereum, it's the most centralized asset out there, hands down. And Fura, Consensus, JP Morgan, they're all working together on Ethereum. So if you think you're contributing to decentralization and you're actually mining Ethereum or participating in their ecosystem, you're not. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong if you believe in that project and you believe that it's going to be. But I think people are being misled, especially around some of these other projects that are really just created to divert people's funds. That's all it is. I mean, let's face it. This is the dilemma. Not really the dilemma. This is the conversation that happened at a major exchange, right? How do we create more funds for ourselves, get more assets, put more Bitcoin in our pocket, put more fiat in our pocket? How do we do that? Well, we can create an asset that has absolutely no value. We can hold all of it in 3 or 4 wallets. And then what we can do is hire massive marketing and PR companies to come in and promote our project. And as it goes up, we'll sell. And because we have so much and it's basically an infinite resource, we're just going to keep doing it till it doesn't do it anymore. And when that one dies, we'll do another one. And when that one dies, we'll do another one. And that's really, honestly, that is the cancer that currently is in blockchain. And it really does concern me in many different ways. So I tell people, do your own research. Look at GitHub. That's where these commits are supposed to be taking place, where code is being developed, where the project's being developed. Follow their Twitter, follow their Facebook, come to their community meetings, ask pointed questions, see if you actually get somebody from the team to actually answer you. Are they anon? Are they public? Do they actually have a company somewhere that actually supports the project? These are all things that people really need to consider. And I'll get off my soapbox now.
No, that was great. Thank you. So I have a few questions from that. So one of them being, with regard to unregistered securities being sold by some of these centralized exchanges. So that basically means that they would fail the Howey test, wherein they purchase an asset and they receive a return without doing any work on their own.
That's right.
What do you think? How does Flux distinguish themselves and pass the Howey test?
Well, Flux has already passed the Howey test, so we've had 2 legal reviews done in the United States. We also have one done in the EU as well. So we are 100% a utility asset. Every component of Flux requires Flux to basically transact. So if you want to deploy a dApp, you need Flux. If you want to deploy a website, you need Flux. You want to turn a node up, you need Flux. If you want to participate in different pieces in Zelcore, you need Flux. And that, by definition, 110% is a utility-based asset. And that is exactly what Flux is. Now, if you took that same test and you said, can these other platforms that are claiming to be decentralized, ask them where their servers are located. Ask them where if you've bought an NFT and you had to burn their asset to create a node, is it real? Because most of them are just APIs. So they'll come out and they'll say, oh, we have 50,000 nodes that run on our network. No, you have 50,000 bullshit APIs and a bunch of NFTs that you sold and a bunch of people that you dumped on. So these unregistered securities you're just flirting with disaster, because sooner or later the crackdown's going to come, and when it does, we better pray to God that we end up on the right side of history. Because if regulation comes and they go after blockchain overall, you could see a real challenge coming down the pike. So my hope is that they clean things up, they have sensible regulation, and I think they make every single asset on these centralized exchanges, I think they make them get a legal review. It just makes sense.
I agree. I do think that regulation is coming, and I do think that there needs to be a crackdown of sorts. One, to kind of clean things up for everyone, and two, just to really make it clear who's really doing something valuable in this space, and also to protect people first and foremost. So you mentioned Ethereum being highly centralized. And I do agree, while it is more centralized than I think anyone would like, who's been in this space for a while, do you see there, as of right now, having been like a better alternative to Ethereum, but like before Ethereum, or up until, like, let's say up until Flux was created, maybe? Do you see there having been anyone else that could have been used, or anyone else who's more decentralized and is a better alternative to use than Ethereum?
Well, and I want to back up and I want to make a statement. With Ethereum being centralized, it's just part of the growth curve for them as well, because a lot of the technology that exists today didn't exist when Ethereum first did their ICO. So as any project starts to grow and starts to iterate, your ultimate goal is always to become more decentralized if you're a truly decentralized project.
Mhm.
So for us, for Flux, we started out as, as essentially a fork of Zcash. We have since
Mhm.
then removed the privacy features of it because we didn't need it. And
Mhm.
we basically, for all intents and purposes, we created, the chain that we have today as our own custom chain. Um, the bottom line is ETH should be striving to be more centralized, but they're not. The whole move to proof of stake is just another way that they're becoming more centralized in the end. Is there other projects out there that are working on decentralization? Hell yes, there's a lot of them. I like Cadena. I like what they're doing. I like any proof of work project that has, and I mean, those guys have solved a major challenge with the trilemma and crypto, and I think that you're going to see them actually be. If I had to say there was a decentralized solution for Ethereum, it would be Cadena. They're layer one. Flux is a layer two, but it has a layer one blockchain. So we work hand in hand with Cadena all the time. Why? Because I did my research back when I found Cadena originally, and I said, this is somebody we want to work with because their ethos is just like us. They believe in decentralization. They believe in creating an opportunity for the masses, and they put their money where their mouth is. They develop technology that makes sense. So, do I see any other projects out there that are really focused on decentralizations? Yeah, most of the time it's talking out the other side of their mouth. They'll say, "Hey, we're decentralized." You look at these Web3 projects. Yeah, we're decentralized, and then you look at where their node structure's located. It's in two co-load centers in the middle of the states. It's like, well, that's not decentralized, guys. So, um, I think we all need to do a better job in the space to concentrate on decentralization and push that narrative, because in the end, that's what's going to save us. I mentioned earlier about the fact that centralized exchanges, you should look at these platforms, make sure that they're not securities. But there is another side of the world where I truly believe in DeFi, and I believe if you want to buy a shitcoin, you should have the right to buy a shitcoin. I don't think that should be controlled by a central entity. So I I love my decentralization, and I believe in every project should be working to be more decentralized in the end.
No, I completely agree. I'm, as a cypherpunk myself, and that having been the real reason why I got into crypto and have been so keen on how it's developed over time, I completely agree. Would you say that Ethereum is sufficiently decentralized enough that there is no risk of collusion, or do you think that collusion is definitely a risk, maybe if not today, in the near future, perhaps?
Oh, I think Ethereum has. There's been collusion since day one with Ethereum. I
Oh,
mean,
really?
even it has even gotten worse. I mean, you look at the ICO and the fact that their move to proof of work was really, I mean, for all intents and purposes, you could have looked at Ethereum as a security in the beginning. Um,
Mhm.
and now they're moving back to proof of stake, which is a centralized platform. I mean, just call a spade a spade. It is what it is. It is. There's nothing wrong with that, but you can't disguise it and wrap it in decentralization and say that it's a decentralized project when JP Morgan is the one standing behind you, um, pushing you all the way. So, I tell everybody, listen to this, do your research and go out and see who owns Infura and Consensus, and look
Mhm.
at the deep ties to JP Morgan and Ethereum. I think you'll be surprised. So, I think the move to proof of stake is really a push to centralize the platform even more, cut out the only people that did make it decentralized in our miners, and that's a damn shame, but it's great for Flux.
Yeah. So, my opinion with Ethereum, with the move to proof of stake, was ideally it would have already been decentralized enough that in the sort of a centralization of it through proof of stake, that it would effectively just be rewarding those who have been participants for a long time. But I do see the other side where it's cutting out people who have less than that 32 ETH or the 16 ETH required to even be like a Rocket Pool participant. So
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely do see that.
Do you know who
So
it's not cutting out? You know who it's not cutting out? The folks that are going to be running those nodes are going to be exchanges, and they're completely
yeah,
centralized.
yeah, no,
And they're
and
going to
I
be
think
doing they'll be doing it with your ETH.
right, exactly, which I think is almost criminal, to be quite honest. I think it was determined that I think if maybe it was Coinbase would have about 54% of all Ethereum, all of
Yeah.
ETH,
Yeah.
by the time proof of stake rolls around, which is obviously not a good thing.
So now let
So
me
it is,
let me ask you a question. Does that sound decentralized to you?
no, no, it does not at all. And it's a shame. I wish that staking, the process of staking, had been a little marketed a little better, and more accessible for more people to prevent all the centralization of all of that ETH. But this is the reality we're in right now. Um, so yeah, definitely see all of that. Um, okay, so I think Bunzi had a question.
Yeah, one thing that you were mentioning earlier, and as a miner who pays electricity bill, um, proof of useful work. I want to dive into that and first of all explain what it is, and that's really what got me excited about Flux. When I started reading, that's the direction you guys are heading. Could you explain that to our listeners? What proof of work is, what proof of useful work is, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. So the idea of proof of useful work is it. We don't take credit for coining the phrase. We take credit for the way that we're going to build it out. And essentially, one of Satoshi Nakamoto's dilemmas was what are we going to do with all this computational resources that are basically just validating transaction? You look at the Bitcoin network, and I love Bitcoin, but there is a big issue, and that is the fact that there are a lot of resources that are being used for transactional validation. Does that help with decentralization? Yes, it does. Maybe, I guess. But what we did was we sat down and we thought about it, and we said we want to address the issue directly, and that is we know as technology improves and technology gets better that it isn't it isn't static, that you can do multiple things with a graphics card, right? So what we're ultimately going to do is we started proof of useful work on our node side, where we started to deploy programs like folding at home, and just the general deployment of the nodes and the infrastructure. That's useful work, so the nodes are actually doing something. They're not transaction validators. So we fixed the issue with masternode projects, and the fact that we actually can do something with the nodes, and we can provide useful compute resources that are now becoming the AWS of blockchain. We wanted to take that a step further, and we wanted to look at our mining side of the house. So, Flux's network has grown 6,000% over the past, couple months, and there's so many cards hashing on Flux right now. And I was sitting there one day thinking about it, talking to the guys, and I said, we really just need to think about a way that we can use that compute resource not only to help validate our transactions and secure the network, but how we can deploy that into a manner that people could come in and actually use the residual compute from these graphics cards, whether it's to render something or whatever the use is. If let's say you got a medical student or a computer student who has a large project and they want to render. If you guys have ever rendered anything in graphics, it takes forever to render this stuff, and you got a good graphics card. We did a video for Flux, and it took our developer 16 hours to render it. And if you guys have seen some of the videos that Flux puts out, the little teasers and stuff, they're pretty complex. And now imagine if you took the entire Flux network and you were able to get 350 plus cards, and you could render those things out pretty quickly. So the goal of proof of useful work is essentially to allow a graphics card to do two things. One, continue to stay on the primary chain and validate transactions, secure the network, but allow a percentage of those graphics cards. So let's say it's 50-50, which the number it's arbitrary at this point because we have lots of testing to do. But essentially, let's say 50% of the card would go to maintaining the network. The other 50% would be available for rent. The closest thing I can use as an example is if you've ever mined crypto. Back in the day when you mined ETH, you could also mine Decred. It was called dual mining. And there are a couple projects that still try to do that. They try to do the dual mining thing, but they don't do it effectively. So you're really able to validate the network on two different chains at one time on the same graphics card. We're taking that a step further, and we're actually going to peel out the part where you do the second chain, and we're going to add useful work into that as well. So it conceptually, on paper, it looks pretty damn good. And I would say if you had to ask me, what are you most excited about with Flux? It's proof of useful work. I think it's going to be massive. And it's going to allow normal everyday folks, whether they have a Jetson or a Pi or a graphics card, or whether they're running nodes, all of them will be doing useful work, and they'll actually providing resources back to the community, to the world.
Yeah, great explanation. I mean, that was really in depth. So just where you guys are at in that phase, can someone currently right now help with say a graphic render and earn Flux, or is that down the road?
Nope, we're not there for the GPUs. We're going to have to adjust our algorithm. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's going to be done. Our ultimate goal is to have this on testnet by the end of the year. I would say the way that we move, I mean, we slated Titan to release in Q3. We're going to release it probably within the next couple of weeks. So we move quick. But we're going to take our time with proof of useful work. And I'll tell you why. Is because we're not building proof of useful work for Flux. We're building it for blockchain. Our ultimate goal is to allow any network, whether you're mining Firo or maybe Ergo or maybe other projects, that if they adopt proof of useful work and they integrate it into their blockchain, you'll actually be able to get their hash power as well and their resources to participate in the ecosystem.
I love it.
The ultimate
Open
goal,
source, baby.
yeah, it's going to be open source. It's going to be available to everybody. We're going to pioneer it, and we're going to help anyone that wants to deploy it. We're going to be right there with us. And as a matter of fact, we're working with several. I can't really tell you who, but we are working with several large projects that are working with us on it. You know, we took some some MIT work that they had put together as well. And you know, we're working with some of the smartest folks in the space to work on developing this. Is it going to be easy? Hell no, it's not going to be easy. Is it going to be a lot of work? Yep, it's going to be a lot of work. But in the end, it's our gift to. It will be our gift to the open source community, to crypto at large, and to blockchain at large, because it gives us another way. It gives us the ability to take the argument out of the equation where people say that mining is a waste of energy and resources. We know it's not. But now we're actually going to be able to back that up with some real oomph.
Yeah, that's kind of the whole vibe of Flux, is just being able to back up what the project's about. Because like you mentioned earlier, right now there's a lot of NFT projects or coins where they're hosting nodes, but all they're essentially doing is API calling, and there's not a structure there to fall back on. So I really love the fact that you guys are taking that and bringing it to the blockchain at large, because that is what really sustainability is about. And bringing to my next point, you mentioned a partnership with NVIDIA and that metaverse really getting developed as we speak, and how much rendering comes into place there. So these two technologies kind of merge at a perfect timing.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to hear a bit more. What does the partnership with NVIDIA look like?
Well, this is, well, you know, I've seen everything. You know, there's been a lot of speculation about what we're doing with NVIDIA. People worry about that because NVIDIA has not been very friendly to miners at all, really.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, they've gone out of their way to kind of
Low hash rate.
Yeah. So, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, is Flux being tricked by NVIDIA to work with them and, you know, whatever. No, our goal was to work with everyone in the space, whether you're Web 2, whether you're, you know, legacy-based infrastructure, whether you're new and up-and-coming DeFi project, whether you're a Web 3 project, whether you're working in the meta space or metaverse, or if you're running an NFT project and you need a front-end, back-end infrastructure. We're going to work with everybody. We targeted NVIDIA specifically, and I was very aggressive with going after them because they especially with their Jetsons, we wanted to be able to really deploy on a mass scale that infrastructure because it's important. Why is it important? Because it gets that infrastructure into the hands of the masses.
Mm-hmm.
But a big piece of that is having resources behind us that we can actually ask the questions directly to NVIDIA. So, you know, people kid around and say, well, you see a mining card that's developed for Flux. No, you're never going to see that. You're never going to see that. And when we meet with NVIDIA, we don't talk about mining. What we talk about is how to benefit the other 7,000 projects that are in their inception program. So we have the opportunity to go to some of the most budding businesses out there and be able to share our vision with them and support them in developing their technology. So Inception is a massive project. It's a massive undertaking. And NVIDIA has pioneered that because essentially what they've done is they've created an ecosystem that's a feeder. So it basically works through their incubation acceleration model. Now, we don't need any of that. But what we do need is the resources to be able to communicate freely with them. And if we want to make proof of work really what we believe it can be, there's going to be questions that need to be answered. And the best way to get that is to go to the source. So, you know, I'll tell you, NVIDIA is not the only one we're working with. You know, I'm not going to say who else, but there's not many people that you can figure it out. You know, so I mean, just think about that in the grand scheme of everything. You know, we're willing to work with people. You know, in the end, we came to disrupt the disruptors. You know, there's people in the space that came in, they said they were blockchain, they say they were just decentralized, and they started to lay on the Web 2, you know, central entities, control everything ecosystem. And we're here to say, no, we're not doing that. And as a matter of fact, we're going to show you a better way. So you can talk about it or you can do it. Say it, do
Yeah.
it. Say it, do it, prove it. That is the Flux motto, inside and out. We say what we're going to do, we do it, and then we prove that it worked. And part of that is partnering with unlikely folks, in legacy. And I will tell you right now, they're not the only people that we're working with in the legacy world. Big ones. And they want to understand, because we're here to disrupt their business model. And if you're here to disrupt their business model, or provide them with a deeper use case to their business model, NVIDIA is interested in it, in the fact that we are. I think there's almost 400 Jetsons deployed. We estimate 10,000 Jetsons will be deployed when Cirrus is launched, and we need a way to be able to utilize that effectively. Well, we got to go to the butcher to ask about the meat, and really, honestly, that's what NVIDIA, that partnership looks like.
Which kind of leads me to what's happening right now with Flux. You guys just did the halvening. You just made to run these nodes cheaper for Flux holders to enter. You also mentioned talks of Titan, which is around the corner. I want to speak to that and this Jetpack project because I really want to highlight what's coming up for you guys.
Yeah, we get beat up pretty bad about we give these projects nicknames, and then we just give dribs and drabs of what we're doing, because we like to underpromise and overdeliver. That's really kind of something we hold near and dear to our heart, because there's a lot of projects that promise a lot of things, and if you start to promise things that you can't deliver, then your reputation is damaged. So we make damn sure that when we're ready to deploy these things, that they're ready to go. Now, will we have issues? Probably, because this is new disruptive technology that we're working with. Hell, we took down 80% of our network at one point because we pushed a code. There was a bug in the code, a downstream from Zcash, that ended up taking 80% of the network down, and nothing went offline. Let me restate that, because if you're into infrastructure, if you're a nerd like I am, right? 80% of the network went down, and we didn't lose one application. That's insane. And that is a test.
Truly is.
I wouldn't recommend that stress test on anyone, because that was probably the longest half hour as we started to work through the issue of what happened. But it is a testament to how we build things. And Jetpack is going to be a big deal. It's going to allow people to deploy on the network very seamlessly, very easy, just like standing up a standard VPS.
Mm-hmm.
And Titan is going to allow people to essentially, again, another problem we saw and another problem we addressed. One of the things that was big for a very long time was what they called shared node services. Shared node services are still done today. It's called centralized exchanges, right? So the centralized exchanges get all your assets, they hold them on there, they run infrastructure in the background. And then they give you a pittance of what it would be if you were able to participate. So what we did is we said shared nodes overall is a bad idea, because you have to trust a third party to custody those assets and basically deploy those nodes. And we saw hacks, and we saw scams, and we saw all kind of stuff with these shared node services. So we said, how can we do this so that people can participate, maintain their Flux inside of Zelcore, and be able to deploy as little as 250 Flux to participate in a node? And that's exactly what Titan has done. You will be able to have 250 all the way up to 5,000 Flux. You'll be able to put that into a partial node that'll then be deployed on the network. The custody of the assets is done directly in Zelcore. It never leaves your possession. Titan works a little bit different than the other nodes. You guys run nodes, so you kind of know that if you want to shut your node down and get your Flux, you can do it immediately. Your investment isn't burned or manipulated or locked up for a long period of time. It allows you to basically stand a node up, and if 15 minutes later you change your mind, take it back down, and your asset's still right where it was to begin with. Titan works the exact same way. You'll provide a public node key showing that you have the collateral in your wallet. It will lock it up. There's three terms. I think it's 3 months, 6 months, and a year. And of course, the this is a lot. We had to do lockups with Titan because we couldn't have these nodes going down all over the place. But if you want to run without a lockup, then you're going to do your own node. So this is more for people that are in it for the long haul. They want to participate in the node network. They want to get a nice return on their investment, and they want to be part of the ecosystem. And maybe they don't have 1,000 Flux to deploy a node, or 12,500 or 40,000 Flux. So the ultimate goal is to get this in the hands of as many people as we can so that they can participate and feel part of the network. And this is a great way to do it.
Yeah, that's definitely how I GPU mine Flux. I get Flux and then I roll it up into nodes, and having a position in between, like this Titan that's going to be rolling out, is super exciting for someone like myself, because it just really provides incentive for myself, and it on the other side is providing a lot of useful computation on the network side.
Yep.
So it all makes sense. It all, like, that's why this project makes a lot of sense to me. There's technology to back it up. There's infrastructure. There's a lot happening. One question I have personally is, so I get the side of the miner and the person providing the nodes. For the developers that are launching applications, when they're launching these applications, are they getting HTTPS requests on the online, or are they on runflux.io on that network? What does that look like when they're launching their applications?
So when you launch your application, you're launching it directly to the Flux operating system. So the way that it works is, if you have an app, if I have a dApp and I want to deploy it, I can select how many instances I want to deploy. We're getting ready to roll out geolocation so that you can if you have particular geolocations that you'd like to deploy in, you can do that as well. And you basically select all your stuff in it, and you sign the transaction. You deploy your dApp as long as your application's been Dockerized and placed in Docker Hub, because essentially we use Docker Hub as kind of our repository to pull from, and then that's how you deploy on the network. So some people say, well, if you're relying on Docker Hub, that's centralized. And you're right, it is. And we're working to build our own version of Docker Hub that'll eventually deploy. But this is all iterative technology. So everything. And by the way, you can deploy a Docker without Docker Hub as well, but it's a little bit more complex. So
it's basically for the ease of use right now.
Yeah, we're really, honestly, what we're trying to do is we're looking in all angles to make sure that we're decentralized. You know, when Zelcore was originally launched, there was some centralized infrastructure. We put our money where our mouth was, and we built all of the infrastructure on Flux to run Zelcore. And part of that we built is exactly what Infura is doing. And you're going to see within the next several weeks a project coming from Flux that's basically going to be a direct competition with Infura. So you guys, that's a behind the scenes. You guys get a leak.
Let's go.
There we go. I was going to ask for the alpha leak. Yeah, I've been deploying some dApps recently myself, and I've just exactly as you described. I've been hosting everything on IPFS, and then using Infura or Alchemy to make the calls effectively, which still, kind of leads is centralized. So I'm pretty keen on seeing this born. So yeah, thanks for the alpha, sir. Another question that I had, because I've always seen decentralized rendering as a use case that hits close to home for a lot of people, since there are a lot of graphic designers out there. So a project that I've been interested in for a while is called Golem. So you guys are going to basically be able to provide that. And what are some other use cases that you see hitting close to home or being widely accessible in that sense?
Well, people often ask, what can Flux do? And my answer is always this, and it's like, what can't Flux do? Flux was built from the ground up to take on some of these things like Golem. I can tell you Project Thunder, which we have not talked a lot about, is basically storage nodes that are going to be deployed on the network. So we're going to take one class of node, and it wouldn't be hard to figure out which one. It's the one that there's the most of. And we're going to deploy the ability to put standard hard drive space at a vast, like as much as you want. And as you meet different parts of of requirements and benchmark, you'll be rewarded at a higher rate. So as you provide more infrastructure, so what does that look like? Well, that looks like exactly what storage is doing, what Filecoin is doing, what Golem's doing. We're basically you can do it today. By the way, we have a program called Flux Share, which is basically decentralized Dropbox. You can go in there and you can check it out. Go to our dashboard and you can click on Flux Share and share files. You can do it right out of there.
Oh,
So
this sounds exciting. So on Cumulus nodes, because with a VPS, you can just increase storage easily.
well, you can do it at home. I literally have a box sitting here, and basically Project Thunder was made because I have all these damn hard drives sitting here, and I'm like, there's got to be something we can do with these damn things because I have I have a Raspberry Pi. I can hook these up and get them all going. I mean, there's so much you can do. And the other thing too is, and this is an interesting concept and one that hasn't really been talked about in public. Um, but there's a lot of idle computational resources that sit in this world. And I'm not just talking, in your house in this box of hard drives sitting down here. I'm talking about data centers that have unutilized, storage or unutilized computational resources. So what if we had the ability to allow them to deploy and actually in a decentralized manner provide that hard drive space on demand? That's exactly what we're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, that solves kind of technology getting outdated in a large sense because recycling it is very difficult and just having it still operate at its time, like, hard drive space, um, offering that's still using it and having it be a green resource.
Capital efficiency through hardware. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and that's another opportunity where you extend an olive branch to the Web 2 infrastructure. You know what I mean? We basically allow us to continue to be more robust, more decentralized, and also include them in their business model and whatever this looks like as it continues to keep growing. So
yeah, and I think that that's ingenious. As you mentioned, because you are disrupting an existent structure, you may as well partner with them. That way, you're not seen as a foe and instead as a friend, which kind of helps
Bingo.
everybody in the long run, which I think is absolutely genius. And then this is just a little quick aside with regard to proof of work and its implications, like on the environment, because I think that gets a lot of hate from people who aren't necessarily familiar with everything. So
Amen.
there's obviously, like a lot, as you mentioned, a lot of computation being allocated to strictly recording transactions on the Bitcoin network. And trying to make any changes to Bitcoin Core is almost seen as you'll be seen as an infidel if you even suggest that.
Yeah, good luck.
Which I mean, there's you can see that as okay, Bitcoin is bad and it needs to go down. Or an argument that I've heard that I'm curious to hear your thoughts on is, well, Bitcoin is now a natural resource in the world, and it's this force that's actually going to finally push us as a species to come up with more efficient sources of energy because Bitcoin isn't going anywhere. So let's figure out how we can fit it into our world and render it sustainable, which will ultimately be good for energy as a whole. What are your thoughts on that argument?
Yeah, I mean, I think people. First of all, I think the environmental impact argument is. I mean, just look at all the banks. I mean, I drive through town here and there's, 30 banks in town. And it's like, if you really want to start comparing things, look at what it costs to run, dryers in your house because they're outrageous, right? So we're going to start banning dryers. Guess what, guys? You can't have dryers now. It's a straw man. It's a bullshit argument. You guys, and I know that, I at one point in time had a very large mining facility. Everything that I used there was nuclear power. It was renewable power. I would say a lot of people are doing the same thing because what is the number one overhead you have as a miner? Your power.
Energy, yeah.
Of course, your deployment of capital for your graphics cards or your miners, but so we are always gravitating toward, look at Genesis Mining. I mean, they're basically using geothermal to power their rigs. There's a reason why they're out in the middle of nowhere. Um, I think what you're going to see is as Bitcoin continues to kind of grow, and I think you'll start to see uh, big players, governments come into the space. They'll want to try to push for change. They'll want to try to push Bitcoin to change, and this is the one time I believe um, the tribalistic version of what the ethos of the folks that run Bitcoin need to stand their ground, because I don't think it needs to change. They need to change the way that they accept Bitcoin. And if they do it
Mm-hmm.
effectively, they're going to be, to be a superpower in this world 25 years from now, you better have a shit ton of Bitcoin, because the fiat debt cycle that has been created is gonna put waste to all of that. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I and Satoshi even talked about this a bit too when he talked about other projects forking Bitcoin. If they didn't like particular things that Bitcoin was doing, or like Flux, they think they want to do something different. We're not looking to be gold, digital gold. That's exactly what Bitcoin is. What we are looking to do is be the very first Flux, the very first decentralized computational network, truly decentralized computational network. So I think it's going to be we live in an amazingly interesting time. And I think what you're going to see transpire over the next several years is really going to blow your mind. I mean, I've been in this space long enough to, I've never in a million years thought we'd be where we're at so fast.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, they gauge everything in the crypto world. A day is like a year,
Yeah.
right? So,
Can relate.
so I think we're in a very unique time. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun coming up in the next several years.
I agree. And another thing, that just to, I think, really kind of emphasize the scope of what Flux can really achieve. As of right now, I mean, we have games being streamed, right? So the what is it called? Google's current project. I'm forgetting the name off the top of my head. But it's the service where you don't need to have a graphics card on your own system. You can have something as simple as a Chromebook. But if you have the right peripherals, then you can play basically any game, even something like Cyberpunk.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and everything
Yep.
is rendered in their system, and then the result is sent back to you. Um, so, is that something that Flux would be able to do in the future as well?
Absolutely. And we've already the gaming community is an area that we're focusing on. We actually sponsored I think it's JS13. Basically, they create games and they deploy them. We were one of the judges for their competition this year. We believe that Flux will definitely be that back end powering that. And as technology continues to kind of grow and iterate, and the network continues to develop, I think you're going to see a lot of gamers gravitate. I mean, you look what happened with Steam. Essentially just basically saying, "Yep, crypto's out of here. So whatever you guys are doing, we're taking it down. If you have crypto, anything related to crypto, it's out of here." Yep, that's why Flux is here, guys. So we're here. If you want to develop on the platform, come talk to us. We're glad to help.
Awesome. And
Yeah,
with
speaking of gaming, I've had this idea of competitive gaming going towards decentralization, where it kind of takes out the middleman, where people can on a contract wage their bets, and then the platform gets kind of certified so no one's hacking. Is this something that you think is possible? I know I'm not explaining it quite well, but I think it could revolutionize the way competitive gaming happens.
So I think it's like anything else. I think you have to build the infrastructure, then you have to bring the use cases in and basically show them that it can actually be done. Because I would say the majority of the folks that are gaming could give two flying craps about what runs the back end. But the people that are building the infrastructure behind it, they care a lot about that. And they'll also care a lot about what the platform continues to offer to them. And not only that, money talks and BS walks. And it is way cheaper, damn near free, to deploy on Flux rather than these other platforms that they're spending a crap ton of money on. So in the end, it's always the value add is always you're either the first, you're the biggest, or you're the cheapest. And we're all of them. Yeah.
That's perfect, and that
Yeah.
kind of segues perfectly into my next question with regard to it running on Flux. Much uh, how much more efficient is my capital going to be if I'm paying for Flux hosting rather than something like AWS?
So the best example I can give, and I don't have the statistics right in front of me right now, but if you were going to deploy our base level node infrastructure on, say, something like AWS, it'd be about $138 a month. With Flux, it's about zero point 0.9 Flux, which is about a little over a dollar.
Oh wow!
So you can see that this is like, and people are like, their mind is blown when you tell them this, and it's only logical because the proof of work has already happened. They've already provided the infrastructure by the node operators standing up the infrastructure and being rewarded in Flux. So basically, it's the bill's already been paid, the tab's already been done. All you have to do is come in and deploy on it for a very small amount of Flux, and you're now running in a decentralized manner. So we can do that, and we plan. I can tell you right now, we 100% plan. I have a number that sits on my desk. I look at it every single day, and that is exactly how much money AWS takes in a year, and we're going to put a dent in it at some point. So that's the ultimate goal. Is you people, you can talk about technology, you can pitch proof of concepts, you can talk about maybe even have a minimal viable project, and you can share it with somebody, but until you can show them that you can actually do what you say you can do, they don't give a shit. They
Mhm.
want to know if they're going to invest the time and resources into it, it better be worth it. And that's exactly what Flux is doing right now.
Wow. All right. That's pretty amazing. So, one last question. With regard to like, and I love that you have partnerships with NVIDIA, and I imagine potentially the other one could be with AMD, both of which are, I've been a long time investor in both of them, and I love both of them. Just because I've seen the future that we're going to be headed into, which is basically the metaverse and everything. I call me crazy, but I started imagining this when I was like maybe 16, 17 years old, which is, Jesus, almost 10 years now. Um, but so basically, we'll actually be able to run something like Decentraland or the Sandbox completely on Flux in a decentralized manner and truly make it permissionless, censorship resistant,
Yep.
and universally accessible. Is that the right scope of what Flux will be able to do?
Yeah, and the metaverse is a unique situation because essentially, what you're doing is you're deploying other tangible pieces. So, big pieces of the metaverse is developing this infrastructure that is really in this virtual world, right? So, but those virtual things have real value to them. If you've created something in the metaverse, if you own a particular, I don't I whatever the platform is that you're using to interface in the metaverse, and somebody decides to arbitrarily just deplatform you, whether you're killed in the metaverse world or killed in the real world, it's still damn painful. I think dying in the real world's a tad bit more, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, you could definitely see censorship come into the metaverse, and essentially people that participate and are part of it. That's kind of scary, and that's where decentralization comes into play. So the way the metaverse has been touted and rolled out is not how I believe it will actually be received down the road. I think you're going to see something different. I think you're going to see it start to gravitate toward Web3, and when it does, we're going to be standing there arms wide open.
Got it. Cool. And then, another thing I wanted to ask about. So I'm really big on DeFi, and I use primarily only Ethereum for everything. That's kind of the chain I live in. But could you tell me more about parallel assets and what benefit that will provide for the standard user and even institutions?
Well, you must be rich as hell if Ethereum is your go-to. I can't imagine what you pay in transaction fees. um, Ethereum, we looked at these different platforms, and one of the issues that we also addressed was I call it the holy grail of blockchain, and that's interchain operability. So you have all these blockchains that have been created, and it's always been kind of a dream of mine for these chains to actually work together. So what we did with Flux is different than anyone else has done in the ecosystem. Is we've created the main chain, which is the primary chain of Flux, but then we created parallel assets that are actually residing on other chains. So you've got ETH, Binance Smart Chain, KDA, Tron, Ethereum. We're getting ready to snapshot Avalanche and also Terra Luna. There'll be 10 that we've announced right now. The other 3 are yet to be announced, but I will tell you one of those is going to be almost guaranteed to be Polkadot. And
Ooh, another leak. Let's go.
Yeah, you guys are getting the full download. Whoever's listening to this on the Flux community, you're welcome. So, essentially, what the parallel assets do is allow you to live in another chain. So if I want to participate in ETH and DeFi, or I want to participate in CADX on KDA, or I want to be, and I'm sorry, I said ETH twice, but actually Solana was the other one. If I want to live in Solana ecosystem and participate in Serum or something of that nature, you can do it. And then you can, then once you're done doing whatever you want to do and you want to come back to main chain, you can come back to main chain, and you can do that through Fusion inside of Zelcore. So basically what we did is create a gateway to allow people to deploy on other platforms and come back to their main chain.
Got it. Okay.
And that's that in a nutshell. That's parallel assets.
Got it. So it's similar to bridging, but it's a little different. And I'm interested in hearing exactly how that works, like the mechanics behind it under the hood, if you can dive into that a little bit.
Well, when you say bridging, I'm assuming that you're talking about wrapped assets. So essentially, like, a wrapped asset, a wrapped ETH, wrapped Bitcoin, whatever's wrapped. Wrapping assets like that, you have to take into account there's a third party that does this, whether it's, whoever it is that's actually wrapping the token. So most of these platforms are audited as soon as they've created these wrapped assets. But who's to say that there isn't surface area there for vulnerability? And by the way, that's damn centralized too. What parallel assets allow us to do is actually to mint in the native token of the chain. So, we mint an ETH token, we mint a KDA token, and we allow Fusion, which runs on Zelcore in a decentralized manner, to be able to move from one chain to the other chain completely seamlessly. So you go into Zelcore, you pick what chain you want to be in. So say I'm in the main chain and I want to be in ETH. I simply select how many of the main chain I would like to move to ETH. Bang, it's done. You're now in Flux ETH. You can go to Binance and you can trade, or you can do liquidity pools on Sushi and Uni, whatever. So,
what kind of is there gas involved with transferring over?
Yeah, there's always a small amount of gas, both Flux and, again, another use case for Flux. In Flux and whatever the native asset is. So now the one that doesn't require anything is KDA because of their gas station model. So when you move from the token to the main chain, there's just the Flux transactional fee for you to move over, which is just really how we power Fusion. And you're back into the main chain or whatever chain you want to go to.
How would you compare using like a DEX from going from Flux to ETH, or going from parallel assets within Zelcore? What would be the gas difference there?
Well, I'm not familiar. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't mess around with DeFi that much. I'm more of a conventional old school guy. I mean, there's always going to be gas fees, especially if you're dealing with ETH. But I would say as these projects start to work moving forward, I think you'll see those fees continue to decrease. Problem is I haven't seen a chain other than KDA that can actually do that. And that's going to end up being a problem in the end, because, a lot of these folks who put a lot of weight behind TPS, you're going to see some challenges there. So there will always be a gas on damn near every model. And by the way, for Flux, that's our utility model. That's how we run the chain. That's how it was built like that.
Got it. Makes a lot of sense. And so, just to ensure that I have it right, so let's say if I have, I don't know, let's just say like $10,000 worth sitting on Flux, and I want to move it over to mainnet on Ethereum, um, I would be able to do that. My Flux would be basically swapped across chains over to ETH, or what would be the asset that
Yep.
I have? Oh, okay. So cross chain
Yep.
swap right out of the gate, and
Yep.
then I would just.
Right out of the gate.
Oh, okay, that's pretty cool. And then with the Flux that I'm moving over, is that getting locked up somewhere, or like collateralized? And then when I want to come back, do I bring that value back in order to reclaim it, or am I just basically whatever money that I have over on mainnet, I'm bridging over, and whatever that amount is just converted back to Flux? How does that work exactly?
So the meat and potatoes behind the scene is essentially there's a placeholder put on the blockchain that basically says you have 10,000 Flux, you were in main chain, now you're on the ETH side of the world. And when you leave the ETH side of the world to come back, it's going to allow you to move back, and it'll just it basically is a smart contract that runs in the background. I can't get into the real technical details of it. That would be more the CTO being able to tell you how that works. But essentially, it's just a seamless process. You just go from one asset to the other asset, and it locks it up. So we have a really good article on our Medium specifically around. It's called the secret sauce. The basically everything you needed to know about parallel assets. So I highly recommend you guys check it out, and anybody listening, check it out.
Yeah, I was actually in the middle of reading it before we hopped on, which was why I was like really curious about it, because I imagine that's something I'll definitely be doing. So very cool. And I just wanted to understand what risks there could be, if any, just given what's happened with I think it was Wormhole, with Ethereum and Solana. Um, so just wanted to.
Yeah, we live in a weird world. There's always inherent risk in any disruptive technology, anything that's new. But we have a very robust security back end. We have, audits in place. We have, security scans. We have on staff, basically a guy that takes care of all of our security pieces as well, making sure that everything is meeting compliance. We have policies and procedures to mitigate some of these risks, and we take that serious. So we don't deploy things that hasn't been very well vetted, very well tested. Even the situation where I told you about the network going down, that ran on testnet for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks before we released it. Um, there's always the risk because you're dealing in disruptive technologies, and as many people that are working to build out those technologies and to make them safer, there's as many people working to basically utilize them for bad, in a negative way. So,
Mhm.
our job is just to stay on our toes and always be the good guys and always make sure that we're on the right side right side of the world here.
Absolutely. And do you guys have bounties for people to basically try to hack Flux and earn rewards for finding them?
We do. We'd have a bug bounty. We also have CVE reporting. We also have an on staff security expert as well. So yeah, we take this shit serious, and because in the end you can have the best project in the world, and if there's a massive vulnerability, it could damage your reputation. It could damage your project, and worst of all, it could upset your community, which we would definitely not want to do.
Yeah, like recently with Polygon, there was a bug that was found, wherein the hacker would have been able to take everybody's Matic effectively, absolutely every Matic on the chain. Um, but
Holy
they
shit!
ended up actually reporting it to Polygon, and they got a bounty of I think it was like $1.3 million or so.
Nice, good payday for that guy. There's plenty of white hats out there that are always. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at these little pop-ups that come in that people are finding little things, and they're suggesting, hey, this is wrong on the website, or this is it. The bounties definitely help with that. We have a very active community, so yeah, that's a big deal.
Very cool. Okay. Bunzi, did you have any other questions?
No, we covered so much today. There's so many exciting things that you're working on, and I don't think we want to respect your time and thank you for jumping on. And if there's anything else you want to bring up that you're working on, excited to share with your community, we'd love to give you that space to do so.
No, but I would like to thank you guys for the opportunity jumping on here. Thanks for supporting the ecosystem. I mean, it's folks like you that really get excited about things. It makes me excited and helps fuel me to do even better. And I want to thank our community because like I said earlier, we have the best community out there. I truly believe that. And of course, the team. So we have a great group of guys and gals that really just go out there and they work their asses off every day, and you can see it. You can see it. You can feel it. It's palpable. We plan on being, the replacement to ETH. We plan on being the biggest and the baddest. Our goals are very lofty, and it wouldn't be possible without everyone working together. And I'm not just talking individuals that are participating with this project. I'm talking to people in the blockchain space overall. So, we live in a very interesting time. We really need to create a village, and we need to really stick with that. So, and all work together, because in the end, if we work together, we win.
That's truly decentralization. Is everyone contributing a bit for the greater good?
Yep.
And
Amen.
You guys are building the infrastructure to do so. I mean, it was easy for me to start to contributing. Mining and contributions what really led me to super deep down this rabbit hole. So super excited for Titan coming up and putting that into my mining stack to roll up. And again, thank you very much for what you do.
Awesome. Thank you guys. And thanks again for having me on.
Yeah, of course. So a couple of action items I think for the audience, I think would be to go read about Flux. If this talk wasn't quite enough to see what the scope of what they're building is, I do hope it was. I think we went pretty broad there and in depth. But I would say go buy some Flux, start a node, join the community, download Zelcore, and stay tuned for what else they're going to be building, because I think with their partnerships with these centralized organizations that exist today, I think that they're really setting themselves up for a lot of success in the future. And it'll probably come a lot more quickly than anyone thinks. So again, thank you, Daniel, for sharing everything. I think it was a lot of fun for me. And I think it'll be really interesting for anybody who hears this.
Yep. Thank you guys again for having me on. I really do appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.
All right. Signing off. Thanks again, man.
Welcome to FutureFi, where our mission is to educate and elevate Web 3.0. Prepare for exploration in 3, 2, 1.